Birthdays Around the World, page 99. Germany.
Germans take birthdays seriously, sometimes receiving a half-day vacation from work. Flowers and wine are common gifts.
Japan.
The birthday child wears entirely new clothes to mark the occasion. Certain birthdays are more important than others. For example, the coming-of-age birthday at age 20 is considered one of the most important. Ages 60, 70, 79, 88, and 99 are also significant.
Denmark.
A flag is flown outside a window to designate that someone who lives in that house is having a birthday. Presents are placed around the child's bed while they are sleeping, so they will see them immediately upon awakening.
England, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
When you reach 100 or 105 years of age, you may receive a letter from the Queen. In the U.S., when you reach 100, you receive a letter from the President.
China.
Age 30 is considered becoming an adult, and there is usually quite a celebration. Birthdays are traditionally celebrated for adults who have reached at least 60 years of age. Lo mein noodles are often served.
Mexico.
The piñata, usually made out of papier-mâché and in the form of an animal, is filled with goodies and hung from the ceiling. Children take turns hitting the piñata, so candy and small toys spill out for everyone to share. Also, when a daughter is 15, the birthday is celebrated with a special mass in her honor. A party is given to introduce her to everyone as a young woman. The father dances a waltz with her.
The People's Court, page 101. Case 1.
Two women gave their landlord an $800 security deposit before moving into their apartment. When they moved out 3 years later, the landlord refused to return the $800. He said that the women left holes in the walls from hanging pictures and stains on the carpet. The women claimed the slight damage was from normal wear and tear of apartment living. In court, the landlord produced bills totaling $1,500 for painting and cleaning he had done.
Case 2.
Your local dry cleaners lost your winter coat, valued at $500, but refused to pay the full amount because they say it's only worth $200.
Case 3.
The auto shop repaired something you didn't request, charged you for it, and refused to release the car until you paid for it with a certified check or cash. You protested, but needed your car, so you paid. You demand the $525 back.
Case 4.
The 12-year-old kid next door hit a baseball through your window. His parents say it's his responsibility to pay for it. But his weekly allowance is $4, and it would take 3 years to collect the full amount.
You Be the Judge, page 102. Case 1, New York.
A driver who was racing down the street at 100 miles per hour crashed into a limousine carrying a wedding party. Instantly killed were the groom, age 27, and his brother, 29, who was the best man. The bride, aged 24, died 18 days later without knowing of her husband's death. The driver of the car that killed them was sentenced to 3 years in prison.
Case 2, Texas.
A man got into an argument with a police officer and bit off part of the officer's ear. The man was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Case 3, Massachusetts.
A 14-year-old girl was raped by a 38-year-old man. She said that her life would never be the same again. The judge told her to get over it and sentenced the man to 6 months in prison.
Plastics Alert, page 103.
According to a recent news article, we should not be using plastic containers when heating our food in the microwave. This applies especially to foods that contain fat. Researchers say that the combination of fat, high heat, and plastics releases dioxins into the food and ultimately into the cells of the body. Because dioxins are highly toxic, doctors recommend using glass or ceramic containers for heating food.
Short Business Decisions, page 104. Situation 1.
Julia is the manager of Robil's Ice Cream Cafe. In spite of the weak economy, people seem to be eating more ice cream and business is up by 20%. Julia needs to hire one more employee to work nights and on weekends. Julia's former high school friend Margaret needs a job and applies for the position. She has never worked in an ice cream store before. Previously, she had been a clerk in an office. Richard has also applied for the job. He has had experience working in a similar store and has excellent references. Who should Julia hire?
Situation 2.
Charles, owner and president of the Welland Construction Company, has the opportunity to get a contract to build an addition to an elementary school. The contract is for $2.5 million. The problem for Charles is that the official who will make the final decision has asked for a payback of $15,000 in return for giving him the contract. Charles has never faced this situation before. What should he do?
Situation 3.
Jack is the CEO of an international bank. There is an opening for an overseas position. The person who is chosen would become a senior executive and earn a large salary. After interviewing 9 employees, Jack is convinced that Louise, who has worked for the bank for 5 years, is the best candidate. Louise is 35 years old. She has a husband who is a technical writer and works from home, where he helps to take care of their 2 small children. She is a valuable member of the company and has indicated that she might leave if she doesn't get the job. The problem is that she might not be well received in the country she is going to, where there are very few women in high positions, and the bank could lose business. What should Jack do?
Hold the pickles, hold the lettuce. Page 106.
What is perhaps most astonishing about America's fast food business is just how successful it has become. What began in the 1940s as a handful of hot dog and hamburger stands in Southern California has spread across the land to become a $110 billion industry. According to Eric Schlosser, the author of Fast Food Nation, Americans now spend more on fast food than they spend on higher education, personal computers, computer software, or new cars, or on movies, books, videos, and recorded music combined. Mr. Schlosser writes that on any given day in the United States, about 1/4 of the adult population visits a fast food restaurant, and that the typical American now consumes approximately 3 hamburgers and 4 orders of French fries every week. An estimated 1 of every 8 workers in the United States has at some time been employed by McDonald's, he adds, and the company hires more people than any other American organization, public or private. As fast food franchises from McDonald's to Pizza Hut to KFC go global, this dynamic has assumed international flavor. In Brazil, Mr. Schlosser reports, McDonald's has become the nation's largest private employer. Classes at McDonald's Hamburger University in Oak Park, Illinois, are now taught in 20 different languages, and a Chinese anthropologist notes that all the children in a primary school in Beijing recognized an image of Ronald McDonald. For the Chinese, the anthropologist noted, McDonald's represents Americana and the promise of modernization.
Babe Didrikson Zacharias, page 109.
When Babe Didrikson was a teenager in 1925, she knew her life's ambition. My goal was to be the greatest athlete who ever lived, she said. Her parents were hard-working immigrants from Norway, and Babe grew up in a tough working-class environment that helped shape her independent and self-reliant spirit. A tomboy, she was strong and driven to assert herself. In elementary school, she was dubbed Babe after Babe Ruth because of her athletic ability on the baseball field. In school, she dominated every sport she tried: volleyball, tennis, baseball, swimming, and especially basketball, which was very popular among young women at the time. At age 18, she was recruited to join a company's professional basketball team, where she quickly became the star. Soon after, she amazed audiences in many track and field events as well. In the 1932 Olympics, she won several gold medals for track and field. While Babe was a natural athlete, it was her incredible determination that made her a champion. Her next sport to tackle was golf, where she was an unstoppable force, winning 82 tournaments in the 30s and 40s. She co-founded the Ladies Professional Golf Association, LPGA, a worldwide organization. On the golf course, she met George Zacharias, a Greek-American, in 1938. They married, and Babe took and used her husband's name, but by then the Didrikson name was famous. Didrikson was at the top of her career in the early 50s, and with all her tour winnings and endorsements, she was earning over $100,000 a year, an incredible feat for a woman athlete of that time. But in 1953, she faced a major problem she couldn't overcome: colon cancer. After the surgery, doctors said she'd be too weak to play sports. But 4 months later, she was back in golf tournaments. And in 1954, she started winning again. She continued playing until 1955, when, unfortunately, the cancer returned. She held on for another year. Didrikson, arguably one of the greatest athletes of the 20th century, died on September 27, 1956.
Cults on Campus, page 113. Sean, student at UCLA.
In the middle of my freshman year, I was having a tough time socially, since I broke up with my girlfriend and my roommate was always out with friends. So when this friendly-looking guy came up to me on campus, he caught me when I was in a real funk. He was very nice and polite, and we talked about campus issues and friends. After a while, he asked me to think about coming and joining a group he was in, where I could make some new connections. I decided to give it a shot. But when I was at the second long meeting, I began to feel I was getting sucked into something I wasn't sure about. Like, they started making me feel guilty and ashamed about everything I did. Then they made some remarks about how I'd be better off limiting contact with family and friends. Even though I was feeling depressed, it didn't feel right. I felt a tremendous relief when I decided not to go back.
Karen, student at NYU.
When I arrived here, I was really excited about coming to a new city to study. It was my first time away from home, and I was psyched to break away from my old life and meet new friends. One day, in the cafeteria, a nice-looking guy, who I thought was a student, approached me, and we got talking. At first, it was about family and friends, and we really seemed to hit it off. But later on into the conversation, I figured out that he was not a student here. Then he started making suggestions that I come to his church club where I could make new friends. After a half hour, I was getting really bad vibes about the way he tried to latch on to me. Finally, I told him to get lost. When I wrote about this in my journal to my English professor, she told me that there are about 3,000 cults operating in the U.S., and that the fast-growing cult, the International Churches of Christ, has been banned from at least 39 colleges.
Winning in Las Vegas, page 117.
I need an unbiased person with a good set of brains to help me sort this out. A woman I work with, we're compatible friends, decided we should take our vacation together and go to Las Vegas and gamble just for the heck of it. Nellie and I saved all year, and each of us was able to save $1,800 for the trip. After travel and hotel expenses, we had just $400 left for gambling. Nellie and I had a terrific time, saw some great shows, and ate like royalty. We lost some money at blackjack and the craps tables, so we stopped and went for the slot machines, which we both love. We each had $100 left and decided to play the $1 machines. By 2:30 a.m., we were exhausted, and all the money we had set aside for gambling was gone. Nellie started to walk back to our rooms. I then said, "I'm going to put one last dollar in and call it quits." I stepped over to the slot that Nellie had been feeding all night, put in $1, and lo and behold, I hit the jackpot. The money was falling all over the floor, and it seemed like an endless stream of silver dollars was coming out. I counted the total, and it came to $1,200. Nellie yelled, "You have to split that with me. I fed that machine all night." I replied, "When you walked away, it became my machine. I don't owe you anything." She yelled, "What kind of friend are you anyway?" Well, I realized our friendship was at stake and decided to split my winnings with Nellie. I would like to know, was I a fool to do it? Or was I morally obligated to share my winnings? Please tell me what you think. Tess in Texas. The Olympic Games. Page 121. The Ancient Games.
Ancient Greece gave birth to the Olympics more than 2,000 years ago in 776 BC. The Games ended in 394 AD. During those 1,000 years, the ancient Games were festivals to honor the many gods that Greeks worshipped. Olympia, the town where the most powerful god, Zeus, was worshipped, held the first Olympics. The first Olympic Games consisted of no more than one foot race, but as the Games became more popular, other events were added, such as horse racing, boxing, chariot racing, and wrestling. Young men of wealth dominated the early Games, but later, as other sports festivals became more and more popular and offered big cash prizes to winners, men of all classes of society could make sports a full-time career. The Olympic Games never offered cash prizes. It was the glory of winning that meant everything to young men ages 12 to 17.
The Modern Games.
The Olympics were revived in 1896 and were held every 4 years. The modern games were later divided into the Winter and Summer Games. Now the Winter and Summer Games alternate every 2 years. Fewer countries and sports are represented at the Winter Games because fewer athletes come from countries with high mountains and snowfields. The Summer Games attract thousands of athletes from over 200 countries and include many more types of sports, such as swimming and running. Many Olympic athletes today think of the Olympics as more than just winning the gold, silver, or bronze medal. They believe that doing your personal best brings respect and understanding for all athletes playing the same game for peace and humanity.
Election Day in the USA. Page 125.
In the United States, presidential elections are held every 4 years. They are always held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in the month of November. In most states, Election Day is not a holiday from work or school. The President and the Vice President are elected for 4 years. Only natural-born citizens of the United States are allowed to be president. Presidents are required to be at least 35 years old. There are 2 major political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The vice presidential candidates are selected by the presidential candidates. Both people are nominated by their political parties at national conventions several months before Election Day. On Election Day, millions of Americans go to the polls to vote. Polls are located in schools, churches, and public buildings. Polls are open from early in the morning until 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening. Most polls use a voting machine. People always vote by secret ballot. Today, all United States citizens 18 and older can vote if they want to. In presidential elections, about 50 to 60% of Americans of voting age vote. On election night, the votes are tabulated by computer, and the winner is usually announced by midnight.
Learning Styles, page 128.
Here is a description of one kind of learner, the logical learner. These people are very mathematically inclined. They enjoy problems, particularly if they are math-related. They are similar to Mr. Spock on Star Trek because they are very logical, straightforward types of learners. They always want to know how things work, how things relate to one another, and why things are here. When they were children, their favorite toys were building blocks and puzzles. Many of them are now engineers. Psychologists will give you a learning style inventory test to see what kind of a learner you are. Here are a few examples of statements that could be on these tests. I prefer to fiddle with things while I listen or talk to people. I prefer to read a map rather than listen to people giving me directions. I enjoy doing more than one thing at a time.
Bad Hair Day, page 132.
Albert had grown his hair 10 inches because he wanted a special hairstyle. He went to a hair salon that a friend had recommended and brought with him a photograph from a magazine of the style he wanted. After the haircut, he was furious because the hairdresser had cut the hair on top of his head much too short. His friends made fun of him. He had to wear a baseball cap for 2 months, day and night. He was so unhappy that he went to see a psychiatrist. Finally, he sued the hairdresser for $10,000. You are the judge. What is your decision? Would you make the hairdresser pay Albert $10,000?
Exercise, page 134.
Ruth Rothfarb of Cambridge was an elderly athlete who inspired many by competing in the Boston Marathon, 26 miles, the Tufts 10K, 10 kilometers, and other long-distance races. Mrs. Rothfarb, who died Wednesday at age 96, began running at the age of 69. She began running competitively a few years later. She competed in several Boston marathons and Tufts 10K races, as well as long-distance races in Atlanta, Los Angeles, New Zealand, and Thailand before her retirement at the age of 92. She was born in Russia and immigrated to the United States as a teenager in 1913. After her marriage, she worked full-time maintaining a home, raising 2 children, and helping her husband run the family clothing business. At the age of 67, she found herself with time on her hands after her husband died, their business was sold, and her children were grown. I had to do something, she said. I wasn't going to sit around doing nothing. She began taking walks along the Charles River and around Fresh Pond. When the jogging craze came to her neighborhood, she picked up her speed. "If they can do it, I can too," she said. "It's simple enough. All you have to do is pick up your feet and run." In 1976, she accompanied her son Herbert to a 10-kilometer race. "While everyone was warming up, I asked my son if they'd laugh at me if I ran," she said. "He said no. So I did, and I finished. It took me a long time, but I finished." She was 75 at the time. At the age of 84, she was running about 10 miles a day and running marathons in about 5.5 hours. "I like to get going," she said. "If I feel like doing something, I want to do it. I don't have to wait around for anybody else. I don't believe in spending afternoons just sitting around having tea. I do things."